and welcome to Darvanalee Design Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Qld, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for joining me again today. And if you're new, maybe hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. So you might be wondering what the video is about today. Well, today we're going to expand our knowledge on the chenilling technique that we covered a couple of weeks ago. We made a little cushion then. Today we are going to use the same technique to make this gorgeous little flat bottom pouch. It's got the easy zipper tabs in it, and I'll show you how to install a zip using the chenille pieces that we've got here. So if you haven't seen our first video, it's linked up down below, and you can click on that link. It'll scoot you on over. You can watch that and you'll see how to put the pieces together to do the chenilling, the specialized tool. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to use scissors if you don't have that tool. So let's get started. Okay, so there's just a few things that you're going to need today. You're going to need a zip that's 9 inches or larger. If it's larger, we can cut it down. You're also going to need 2 strips of fabric measuring 3 inches by 1.5 inches, and they're for the zipper tabs. You're also going to need some lining for your pouch today, and these are measuring 6 inches by 10.5 inches. And then if you haven't seen our chenilling video, that is linked up down below, and it takes you step by step on how to mark your fabric, how to sandwich it together, and also how to sew it and then cut it with a specialized tool. Today I'm going to show you how to do it with just a pair of embroidery scissors, relatively sharp ones. These ones are Kai scissors, and they are super sharp, and they're only used for this sort of thing. So if you haven't done chenilling before, may I suggest that you just click that link that's underneath this video, or card it up here, and then you can see exactly how it's done. But today we're just going to get straight into doing the little zipper pouch. So what you want to do, I will just give you a brief overview of what you want to do. You basically want to get 5 fat quarters together, or maybe even some scrap fabric that you might have that you've just taken a chunk out of, and you want to get at least a 12-inch square out of it, and you want to have 5 of those squares. And then what you're going to do is you're going to mark from corner to corner, okay, in a diagonal way. You can see here that I've cut this out of my 12-inch square already, so it's not quite corner to corner, but it will work. And then what you're going to do is you're going to draw some lines using your ruler right across the fabric, measuring between 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch in width. So just so you've got that gap between it. Now for me, I just mark that center line, and then I use the edge of my presser foot, and I just use that as a guide, and it gives me roughly just a little bit under 1/2 inch of a gap between each line. And you want to have 2 pieces of that, and again they are measuring 6 inches by 10.5 inches. You're also going to need some quilting rulers, so whatever you've got on hand would be great, as long as it's at least a 12-inch ruler, because you need to measure 10.5 inches. You're going to need a rotary cutter, something to, when you turn it out, that you can poke out your corners. As I said, you are going to need a sharp pair of embroidery scissors or thread snips, something that hasn't been overly used and it's got a really nice cut to it. Alternatively, you can use your larger scissors. I've got these Kai 7170s, and these are super sharp, and they're only ever used for this sort of stuff where I need something very, very sharp. So if you've got a pair of those scissors, you can do that. Alternatively, there is a link down below to the tool that we used in our first video. It makes it super easy. You don't really have to think about it. You don't have to worry about going through your backing fabric. So that might be something that you're looking for. So the link is down below for that. You're also going to need some wonder clips as well, just because it is going through quite a few layers of fabric, and you'll probably bend more pins than not. So wonder clips are really handy for that. There's also a link down below for where you can get those from if you don't have them already. Alrighty, so I'm going to move all this out of the way, and we are going to start on our zipper tabs. Okay, so we've got our zip. My zip is a little bit smaller than what I need, so I've got my zipper tabs, so that's going to make it as big as the piece that I need. If your zipper is larger, you can cut that down. That's not a problem. So just moving the lining out of the way, we're going to take our zipper tab and we're going to fold it in half, and we're just going to finger press that. If you need to, you can actually mark it with a line, and I just do that with a friction pen. And then again, do the same for the other piece. And mark that line. Now the zipper tab method that I'm using today is the easy zipper tab that I've used in a past video, and I'll link that up down below for you as well. And basically what you're going to do now is on the end that has the zipper stop, you're actually going to place that line approximately 1/4 inch in away from it. So this is your right side of your fabric, it's facing up at the moment, okay, and we've drawn on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, and you're going to mark it as close as you can to that zipper stop without actually being on it. Then you'll just grab a couple of pins, or you can just hold it in place. It depends, up to you. If you've not put a zipper in before, I suggest that you use your pins to put it in place, making sure that it is relatively straight, because we can trim this up a little bit later. Okay, so you can see there my line is just below that. Then just pop a pin in to the zipper tape just away from the line, because we're going to stitch on that in just a moment. And then what you're going to do is you're going to head over to the sewing machine, and you're actually going to stitch that on that line. Okay, and what will happen is we'll have that anchored in place, and then our zipper tab is basically done. We don't have to fluff around with it or anything like that. Alright, so I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, just leaving your stitch length at a standard stitch length, and just stitch straight across. For some added security, I always like to do a little bit of a back stitch just over the zipper teeth. Just be careful, don't go too fast, because you can break a needle if you go too fast. Okay, so you can see here that I've stitched on that, and I've just done a reverse there, and I've just stitched on the line. And basically all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flip that over, and I'm going to leave the length that is there on the of the zipper tab, but I'm going to remove this excess zipper tape here. Okay, so we've done that, and that's all gone now. And now what we've got to do is we're going to measure it to make sure that our zipper is going to fit our piece. So all I do is grab my exterior piece, or your lining, either way, doesn't make any difference, and then I'm going to line the raw edge of the zipper tab up against the raw edge of the exterior piece. And I'm just going to pop a clip there just so it doesn't move on me, and then down this end, without pulling it so it moves or anything like that, I'm just going to lay it there nice and flat. If you're worried that it's going to move, just pop another wonder clip on there. Now what I'm going to do is just move my zipper out of the way, and then I'm going to get my zipper tab, and I'm just going to fold it in half and pretend like it's already sewn, and then I'm going to put the raw edges to the raw edge of the exterior, and then I'm just going to make a mark on the zipper of where I need to stitch this. So you can see there that that mark is about 1/4 inch away from those zipper stops. And then I just mark the other side, and these marks will just iron off, which is really good. Alright, so then we're going to get our marked zipper tab, and we can now remove the zip from there, and we know that we have to line up on that spot there. So at this point I sort of like to just grab a pin and weave my zipper tape together. You can stitch it together if you want to, and that's probably easier for most people, but I just weave it just like so, and that'll just keep it together. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is get that line and line it up with the lines that I marked on the zipper, and then I'm going to pin that into place. Making sure that I'm not putting the pin near the line that I've got to sew on, making sure it's going across the zipper tab, the zipper tape straight, and that is. Okay, so I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch that into place again, just giving it a little bit of a reverse over the zipper teeth, and that way it'll give you that little bit of extra security. Okay, so that is done now, and our zipper is now done. We can just flip that over, give that a good press, and that'll get rid of those marks, and then we can just snip away our zipper stop. And then that's it, our zip is done. Get rid of any loose threads or anything like that. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get my pinking shears or just my scissors, and I'm just going to trim that up so it's even with my zipper tape. So just getting rid of that excess, and then our zip tabs are all complete and finished, and then we can move on to our exterior. So if you, as I said, if you haven't watched the original video of us doing the chenilling with the specialized tool, head over and give that a bit of a viewing now, and that way it's going to show you exactly how to do it and how to mark it out. So we can leave that zipper behind, and as I said, I've already done this and I'm going to show you how to do it with your smaller scissors. Now if you don't have sharp scissors, just get your larger scissors. Like if you don't have any small ones, just grab your larger scissors and just be extra careful. It still can be done, but just be extra careful. So basically you can see here I've just started one, and what you're going to do is you're going to lift up your fabric and you're not going to cut your back one. And then all you're going to do is you're going to slide your scissors in there and you're just going to cut down the center, just being careful not to go through your backing fabric. Okay, especially with pointy little scissors, they can get in there and without you even realizing. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, just eyeball it down the center, and if you need to use your larger ones, you can use your larger ones as well. Okay, so you can see here that I'm just sliding them down, and these scissors are super sharp. Now if you do use your larger scissors, bear in mind you will need to have your gap between each one a little bit larger, so you're going to want to go to the 1/2 inch. Again, just sliding your scissors in there between all the layers, making sure that you're not cutting your back. So you can see here this is not quite 1/2 inch and it's a little bit hard to get it through. It can be done, but it's just a little bit hard to get through. And you can see there that I've just cut through all the layers except for that backing fabric. Okay, so that's with the larger scissors, and now I'll show you with the smaller scissors as well. Okay, so again, just the same principle. You're just going between all the layers and then you're just cutting. This one takes a little bit longer with the smaller scissors because you're making smaller snippets, but it's very doable and very manageable, and you can get it done. So you can see there. All right, so basically I'm not going to bore you to death with showing you how to do that. I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to do both of my pieces, and then we'll be back to assemble our pouch. Okay, so we've got that done, and basically what you can do now is to make it fluff up a little bit before we sew. You can actually just rub it together, and you can see there that it just starts to fluff up quite well. Alternatively, you can wait till it's completely assembled and then you can pop it into the wash, but it's not really necessary because the more you play with it, the more it fluffs up anyway. Alrighty, so now we are ready for assembly. So the first thing that we need to do is we're going to actually make this a flat bottom pouch. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take about 1.5 inches out of each corner of my lining and also my exterior fabric. And to do that, all I do is I just place my ruler on the 1.5 inch mark and then grab my rotary cutter and I just cut that corner out. So just being very careful that you don't go too far. If you're worried about using a rotary cutter, you can actually just use your pen. So again at the 1.5 mark, and then you can just get your friction pen and make a mark that way, and then you can just grab your scissors and cut that out. Okay, so you can do it either way. All right, you might lose a little bit of a corner here, but don't worry about that. That's going to get caught up in the seam allowance. Alrighty, so repeat that to the other lining and the other exterior and also the lining, and then we'll be ready for assembly. Okay, so we've done all that. So now what you're going to do is just set one of your lining and your exterior aside. You're going to grab your zip, and then what you're going to do is you're going to place your zip right with the teeth facing down and lining up those raw edges, and then just popping a wonder clip to hold everything in place. Now you have cut this fabric. Now it might move a little bit on you, so you may need a few more than you normally would use. Then all you're going to do is you're going to get your lining, and with the right sides facing down, you are going to clip that into place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get our zipper foot and put that onto our machine, and then we're going to stitch our zip into place. Okay, so that is now sewn into place, and you can just flip that over and you can see that everything is sitting in place and nice and neat. And what we're going to do now is we're going to head to the ironing board, and we're going to give that a press, and we are going to just top stitch this down using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just going across, elongating your stitches to about a 3 to a 3.5 depending on your machine, so you might want to test that beforehand. Okay, so we've top stitched that into place, and when you're going along here, just making sure that you are being careful that you're not stitching your fabric over like that. So you just want to take it nice and slow. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get our other exterior, and with the zipper teeth facing up and our zipper closed for the moment, we are going to lay those raw edges together. Okay, so aligning the zipper tape with the raw edge of your chenille piece, so your exterior fabric. Okay, and then we're going to pop a couple of clips. Just making sure everything is aligning up. And then we're going to flip that over, and then we're going to get our lining piece, and you can see here my zipper's moved a little bit, so this is where it's really good to just flip it over. Okay, and I can hold that into place now, and then I'm just going to, with the right sides touching, I'm going to line my lining up with the raw edges of the exterior and the zipper tape. Then I'm going to do exactly the same thing, head over to the sewing machine and stitch that into place, flip it out, give it a good press, top stitch it down, and then we're ready for the final assembly of the bag. Okay, so I have basically top stitched that all into place, given it a really good press, and now we need to open our zip. Okay, and we're going to take our exterior fabric over to our other exterior fabric with the right sides touching, flipping it over and taking that lining to the other lining with the right sides touching. Now what you're going to do is you're going to clip this into place. Okay, so basically what I'm doing when I'm lining up is I'm making sure that my teeth are going up towards the exterior, so that way I know that the zip's going to close properly, and also my zipper tab is also going in that same direction, so they're not fighting against one another basically. And then I just like to put a clip in there to hold it in place. Even if you get your fingernail in there and just get it to sit right, you want the teeth to align, you want everything to align, all your raw edges, and then you can just pop a clip in there, and you know then that your zipper is not going to move. So then what we're going to do is we're going to align all our raw edges of our exterior fabric. Now I do put extra clips when I'm doing this because it can shift a little bit, so I just don't want it to shift while I'm stitching it all together, especially because we've cut that fabric and it's got a little bit of movement. Alright, and that's about all you're going to need on that one. Making sure that your zip's open before you sew it, so just double check. Yep, my zip is open. And then what I'm going to do down the bottom of my lining, I'm just going to make 2 marks, and that is, I'm not going to sew between this line here. Okay. And then just grab a couple more clips, making sure all our raw edges are all lining. You can use pins in the lining if you need to. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head to the sewing machine, and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we are going to sew this top edge, the 2 sides, and this bottom edge here, but we're going to leave that gap so we can turn our pouch together. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and back stitching at the beginning and the end of your opening here. Okay, so we've stitched all that down, and now what we're going to do is we're going to box up our corners. So basically all you're going to do is you're just going to stick your fingers into there, and then you're going to nest up your seams. And this can be a bit tricky on the chenille side, but just persevere with it and get it to lay nice and flat and your seams nesting. Now when you do stitch this, this is going to be a little bit bulky, so slow down at the seam and take your time and don't rush it. Okay, pop a wonder clip in there because there is no way you're going to get a pin through that. And then you're going to do that on the opposite side. Again, nesting our seams, making sure our chenille is laying nice and flat. And all our raw edges are aligning. Again, pop another clip in there. Okay, and now you're going to repeat that for the lining as well, but you've got that gap there, so you can remove those pins out, and you can see there that I have back stitched coming up to that opening, and it's still open, so we can turn that through. There's a little bit of a tight squeeze through there, but it can be, you can get that through. If you struggle, you can always unpick a little bit and make it a little bit bigger, but I don't want to do a lot of hand sewing, so I always make my holes a little bit smaller. Again, just lining up our seams, so you can see here they're nesting quite nicely. There's not all that chenille in the way. And then in this one we can just pop a pin because we don't have that bulk. Okay, and repeat for the other side. Now at this point, just double check that your zipper is open. I know that mine is because I can see through to the exterior fabric. But just have a little bit of a look in there and make sure that you've actually opened your zip up. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch these little box corners with a 1/4 inch, reversing at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so that's all done. So now what I like to do is get rid of some of that bulk out, so I'm just going to trim some of that excess off, and I do the same for the lining as well. So you can see there that just trimming it down just a touch, and that's going to get rid of that bit of that bulk in there. Right, our next step is to turn it in the right way. So get rid of all your excess threads and get that bulk. And then we can reach in and we can pull our pouch out the right way. So you can see there that little hole, it might be a little bit tricky to get through, but it's quite easy to get it through. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to get in there and make sure that all our corners are poking out like they should be. Use your poking tool or your pepper thing, whatever you've got there, and you want to get your zipper tabs to pop out too. So you can see there, that one's popped out. A little bit tricky, but we got there in the end. And then you're going to do the same for our lining. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to keep your zipper open, get your poking tool, and just give that a really good going along that seam to get those seams to sit nice. The same with the other side. And then we're just going to top stitch close the inside. You can hand stitch it close if you want to, but I generally just pop it back out again and just fold it in on itself, and then do a quick stitch across the bottom. No one's going to see, it's just for me. Okay, and I use about a 1/8 of an inch, and that's enough to grab that that 1/4 inch in there. So I'm just going to stitch right along here. So I'll put a couple of pins in. You can head over to the ironing board and press it into place. That sometimes helps as well. Okay, and now I'm just going to head over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to do an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go past the opening just a little bit from where I started and do a back stitch there on each end. Okay, that's all closed. Now you just need to get rid of your excess threads. Obviously you would use a matching thread. Just for demonstration purposes, I've used a contrasting thread so you can see it. And basically get rid of all your threads, and that's it. Your little pouch is now done. Ending. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed making this little chenille pouch. It's going to make a perfect gift for someone, and just in time for Christmas too. You can fill it up with some makeup or some pens and pencils or some art supplies and gift it to someone. And it's just a little bit different than your normal pencil case or makeup bag. If you like this video today, give it a thumbs up down below and leave us a comment and tell us what you thought. Have you made anything else with chenille before? And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. And for those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reid for Darvanalee Design Studio, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.